Not fair?
I think it's very. I'm going to not say too much. I think it's very fair, but I just want to make sort of two very quick points. The first is, in these states, you will find that the organised crime is absolutely locked into the ethnic structures. I mean, take our own state, take Belfast. Why did the conflict go on so long? The answer is because both sides, criminal networks who ran the pubs, the betting shops, the taxi firms, were locked into it, making money from it, and that's what kept the thing going. In Bosnia, certainly all the criminal structures were Serb criminal structures, or wasn't. They would work together, by the way, when they needed to, but they were absolutely locked into supporting the structures of Afghanistan. However, I think you are right in saying that if you want to bring order to a state, then security is item number one, the rule of law is item number two, and if in the rule of law you're not tackling corruption, which usually reaches the very top of the structures, then you're not doing it properly and you won't succeed. And that's, in Afghanistan, what we decided to do was make common cause with the corrupt and powerful rather than establishing the rule of law, and we're paying the price for that, heavily now.
Well, there's a very interesting academic argument actually that runs completely counter to that, which is that actually corruption on a local level actually mediates power structures in Afghanistan, for instance, and that actually in the sense that it forms a relationship between people in a place where the risk of the state does not go very far. And there's been some very interesting work done by some Norwegian academics on this, saying that actually the whole argument about corruption is a Western obsession. That actually, corruption exists, but corruption does, can actually help keep society together in failing states, and that corruption is too much of an obsession in the first place.
It's the thing which, when you go into Afghan villages and say, why are you now supporting the Taliban again, and 4 years ago you weren't? They say, because we cannot get justice from the state because we have to pay for it. The Taliban provide justice we don't have to pay for. That's corruption.
Yeah.
I've got a set of people, if you just say who you are, which is, if one, or that, Andrew. I'm Carolyn Hayman from Peace Direct. Lindsay talked about paradigms. I think my frustration with the reporting is that the paradigm is perpetrators and victims. And what we never see is the local actors, because it's all about me. And I think this really sort of reached its climax with the cyclone in Myanmar, where the story very quickly became, why aren't they letting me, the Americans or the French, deliver my aid? And the story wasn't about what the Burmese monks were doing, which was actually, dealing with the problems. I'd love Michela to be in Sudan with a Sudanese NGO in their chief, because I think that would give a different perspective from being with a Western NGO. Because we never see the actors, we think they're not there. And so we go on with this idea, as Patty said, we have to do the post-war reconstruction. We have to do this. Actually, nothing is going to work unless they do it. And that was really brought out by Rory Stewart's book, Occupational Hazard, where he went back a year later and looked at all the fabulous development work that we had done. And it had just blown away like chaff in the wind.
But I mean, all I'd say to that is, I think journalists report what they can report in cases like Burma. And I think there would have been different reporting if they had been able to report. And what happens is, in my criticism of the NGO, is that partly they expand to fill the vacuum.
Absolutely.
And when you can't get in, and when you can't get the government to talk to you, it's fairly obvious that the NGOs then will fill that gap. And journalists are just very frustrated. So there are, it's not, I'm not making an accusation merely of gross laziness. There are circumstances which ensure this comes about, but we should just be wary of.
Paul Mylrea from
DfID.
So, here we have.
Clearly, I'm not speaking for myself because I'm a civil servant and I have zero opinions and can't possibly comment as the Director of Communications at DfID. So therefore, I'm just a ventriloquist for when I was head of media for Oxfam, and prior to that, a Reuters correspondent. But I don't know whether I'm violently agreeing or benignly disagreeing. But Paddy's point about strategic patience, And my challenge is to go back to the question, which is journalism failing failed states? And the question is journalism failing failed states? And you've talked about the difficulty of explaining how you build a civil service. Well, DfID builds civil service in Afghanistan. Getting that through the media is impossible. I won't say who it was, but one correspondent sent me an email saying, I'm not interested in development, I'm only interested in war. How do you get that story through? I'm not suggesting, and the point is that in a sense in this room, it's the wrong people to ask the question, because everybody in this room gets it. But the question is, as Fabio said, how do we get this message out to people who don't get it? How do we communicate? And the question in a sense is journalism outmoded, forgotten, should we forget about it? And if you see where there really has been connection between people on the ground and people in this country, it's come through blogging, it's come through mobile phone video and stuff like that. And actually, is journalism irrelevant to failing states? And should we let the people in failing states try to communicate themselves?
Jeremy Bowen.
Allegedly.
I was a fully paid up member of the Something Must Be Done Club in Bosnia. I covered not just in Bosnia, I covered the Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, from the first shots being fired in 1991 right through to Kosovo in 1999. And at the beginning, I really hoped that we would make a difference through what we did, and I in fact used that to inveigle my way into various situations where I could get the story and get interviews and so on, by saying to people, and they were open to it as well, look, tell your story, the world can find out what's going on here. Then I found after a couple of years that line no longer worked anymore, because those people said, you said that just 2 years ago, it's still going on, and you weren't the only one. Actually, why don't you just get lost? Because you're not really achieving anything. So I hope that, I always felt actually that one of the few justifications for the extremely intrusive way you have to work if you're a TV reporter in a place like that, where you bowl into people's lives at their worst moment. A good day for us, getting the story, is the worst day or the final day for somebody in places like that. So I felt that the only justification for that was the fact that we were shining lights into dark corners and telling some sort of truth about what was going on. And in that sense, perhaps helping failed states, and not failing states, but as the time went by in Bosnia and in other places as well, I'm more dubious about that now. I don't know whether or not we do achieve anything. I think what we do achieve, which is important, is to try to at least get some record about what was going on, so people cannot say, whoa, we didn't know. We didn't know that things were going, that ethnic cleansing was going on in Bosnia. But actually, even if you ignored it at the time, people did know because people reported it. And I think that's a justification that journalists can have for what they do personally. Now, does that help failing states? At the time, I'm not sure how much it does, because in the end, the pressures and the process that's going on inside those states and in the bigger, more powerful countries that may or may not take an interest in them, maybe have a much greater impact on things than anything that a journalist could try to do. Personally, that's the Bosnia thing. I think about the most worthwhile thing. Yeah, reporting at the time was good, but since then, I've testified a couple of times at the War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague, and I was pleased to do that because I thought, well, here's something I've got a first-hand knowledge of what was happening, and here's a way of using it that may help things, actually help the process of stopping what was a failed state still failing or failing again.